right, hello, and thank you for listening to this very important interview today. It's September the 23rd, Sunday, 2012. This is Thomas Keegan here with LibertarianProgressive.com hosting this interview. Today we have Howard Switzer, who is running for Congress and in Tennessee's 7th District. He does have some competitors here. Looks like 3 independents, Ryan Aiken, Jack Arnold, Leonard Ladner, the Democrats, Credo, Amuzovich, and Marsha Blackburn, the incumbent representative who did, just so you know all your facts, did vote yes on the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. It is being fought in the courts right now because it has 2 provisions that allow indefinite detention for U.S. citizens and gets rid of the rule of law. Basically, it gets rid of the rule of law, so it's a lawless law, if you can imagine that. But today we're talking about serious issues. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the world people can be occupied with, and that's good, and that's what we're supposed to do. But we're talking about issues today and solutions to problems with someone who's not a typical politician but is on the ballots and will have a legitimate chance to win. And we're talking about issues of life and death, cruelty and punishment and crime, and what can affect you or your loved ones, and justice and fairness and just the world that we live in and future generations, and real life, pursuing happiness, suffering, and just being aware of our surroundings, of ourselves, what's going on, having all the facts so we can make informed decisions, and also being aware of others around us and how we affect each other, and trying to work it all out in a civilized, constructive, informed way. And so, Howard, it is great to talk with you today. We would like to ask you just in the beginning here, what got you motivated? I mean, not, you know, well, it looks like you have a lot of people in the ballot in your district, but a lot of people just don't run, they don't vote, they really don't get involved in politics, but you're here, you're in position if people want real change, someone that's going to keep their oath. You're in position to accept that election if it is. So if you could tell us about yourself, about your district, and what got you motivated, sir, and good afternoon. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here, and glad you're here. We're doing this. We're in the 7th District. Marsha Blackburn, who is the moneyed candidate, has been reelected pretty consistently as the incumbent, and she's been challenged a few times, but I think this time people have, at least everybody in the district that I've spoken with, are pretty much ready to move on, and the Democrats seem to have kind of abandoned Tennessee. So we've got a real opportunity. This is the first year we got a ballot line. We won in federal court and got our ballot line, and so we've got a slate of 11 candidates up now for some of the state house seats, as well as a few congressional seats and the Senate.
Well, yeah, we've interviewed someone else running in Tennessee, Pat Riley, and there's a few others. Yeah, so it looks like there's an effort, there's a movement in Tennessee.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it and seeing more interest in Green Party politics. Our local paper even gives me a byline as the Green Party of Tennessee.
Well, the issues you're going to raise are issues we'll never hear from the Republicans or the Democrats. I mean, we're not going to hear anything about people that are in prison right now. We have the highest incarceration rates.
Right.
People that are in prison for victimless crimes. We're not going to hear.
I'm not going to mention the robbery of civil liberties.
Or there's going to be no discussion about that because they both agree to doing that. She voted for the NDAA and Obama signed it.
That's right. This is all stuff that we need to reverse at a fundamental level. And, I think constitutionally we're going to have to correct some things. One of them being, of course, that money is speech and that corporations are people. And
they're people that live forever. They have like superhuman powers.
And yet the death penalty doesn't apply somehow. Yeah. And of course it used to in this country. There was a time when charters were revoked on a regular basis because they didn't serve the public interest, honestly.
That's true. I mean, you could say, people have a right to organize, and in a corporation like, publicly traded ones, that can make some sense. But there is a merger right now, it seems, between corporation and states. It's not socialism.
That partnership that we're very concerned about.
Yeah, it's not socialism that Obama is proposing, and a lot of the Republicans, when they want to privatize things that are usually in the public sector, it's actually, I think the correct term is fascism. That's what Mussolini talked about a long time ago, and that's a merger of corporation, or if you just say it by its definition, then rather than the term, a group that's a special interest, like it could be a religion. It's just any group that wants to, not play by the rules and be above the law, basically. Yeah. And we need to separate those kind of groups and special interests from our government.
Yeah, the moneyed ideology trumps all, seems like.
Yeah, whether you call it communism, fascism, whatever. I mean, it's just totalitarianism, basically. Right. And so, I mean, the war spending, the wars, are we an empire, or are we a democratically elected republic?
We're a privately owned empire, publicly defended and enforced around the world. So we pay for their enforcement, and they get the benefits of their empire.
Yeah, we do that around the world, and we do that domestically, too. I mean, we do that around the world. We also do that for medical marijuana dispensaries in states that voted to have them. And
yeah, it's shameful.
Yeah, there's people...
Such an important product, both for industry and for health.
Oh, yeah, yeah. All around. I mean, there's the business side of it, where we would save a lot of money with private prisons. We do have the highest incarceration rate again, and there is that
was the whole purpose of the drug war, was to the old New Jersey saying of make a law, make a business. So they pursued the drug war to create the private prison industry.
There's a lot of groups that benefit from it, and I mean, the private prison industry is a group that, some of them are publicly traded. They're totally incentivized to get more prisoners, and they have lobbied Congress to have laws
harder
like the three strikes, and there's been judges that have been caught on the news accepting bribes to send people behind bars just so they can get a payoff.
Kinds of things.
I mean, how could you live with yourself? I mean, not you, but I mean, how could they live with themselves, knowing they sent people to prison, just getting paid off, people that didn't deserve to be there, separated from their families?
And we're a country that says that we are humane, and so I think we are shown over time and time again by our leaders how hypocritical that is, and that we need to stop being hypocritical and stand up and change this system, because we really need to go forward with a new vision in this country based on the one that we had before. I mean, we don't want to throw it all out. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we want to take what's good with us and leave what's bad behind.
That's the whole concept of life, taking the good and leave out the bad, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, when we learn better ways of doing things, we can leave the old ways behind.
We can learn from history, especially nowadays with the accumulation of information, that we've gathered and that we can refer back to and prove that, how history was, especially in this generation where everything's video documented, and there's so many books and different sources for what happened in this point in history, instead of just getting one or two takes on it,
Right. And so we need to not repeat history and make some new history.
That's the ultimate struggle. I mean, is to kind of inch along, try to improve upon the past from learning, like, just learning from the past and not making those same mistakes.
Right.
I mean,
and
that's
learning from the evidence.
Yeah, we're stopping these vicious
policy
cycles.
based on evidence.
I get ourselves to the next, and we are a baby, like you said, the baby in the bathwater.
Right.
We are, history-wise, America is a baby. I mean, we're just like 200-something years.
Evolutionary, we are the, like 2-year-olds or something, who've been, demanding everything that they need from and eating as much as they can, and we're time to wake up and realize we have some responsibilities, and as every person comes to eventually, and mature into that and realize that hitting each other isn't the way to go. Our mothers told us that, the teachers told us that. We don't hit each other, so, we sit down and we work things out, and we do what's right. And I think that's what we need to move forward into, and we need to insist on that.
Yeah, I mean, hitting each other is like, Lord of the Flies or something like that. And, I mean, in some ways, I mean, I guess it always is a best times, worst times. Some ways we have advanced so much. Civil liberties have grown. There have been good advances in there was a Freedom of Information Act now, but there are also some very barbaric things. I mean, we've probably had more, the highest prosperity, I mean, but also the most death and destruction in the last century. And also, I mean, this century, it's been nothing but death and destruction so far.
And despite a tremendous amount of productivity, we have people living in poverty. And it's really about distribution. It's always been about distribution because there's always been enough. We live on an abundant planet. But we've been able to burn up a certain resource pretty good, to the point now where they're having to go to extreme measures to get it. And at some point we have to move beyond that system because it isn't going to be sustainable.
Well, actually,
so when we talk about sustainability, we're talking about locality and talking about building local economies.
Yeah, like decentralizing, basically, is what you're saying.
That's right. Yeah. Decentralized economy, decentralized power structures, and decentralized economic structures. Because economy, I mean, politics has always been about economy. It's always been about who makes the rules. And economy means house rules, right? And so house rules, so the house is the ecology. That's where we live, and that's where everything comes from. Everything. So,
and even our House of Representatives that you're running for.
Right, and the only people that can make the rules that make sense in terms of distribution and resource use are the people who are affected by the extraction of those resources.
Yeah, I mean, the earth is now, a lot of people could argue if you really let the free market work, we might already be off oil already. I mean, if we didn't subsidize it through all these wars, we spent trillions enforcing the interests of some people who think they're special.
Because we allow these large corporations to then dominate the business system, they can perpetuate that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they have this
not allow the free market to work.
Yeah, they do lots of different tricks. I mean, just like the Apple iPhones, they do scarcity tactics, and then they also, at the same time...
I was just thinking, if you think about free market, go back to J.P. Morgan and Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly.
Oh, this is free, I can't make money off of this? Okay, I'll burn your laboratory and discredit you. And fund you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there could be whole different. I mean, if we really let the free market, and also we should call it the freedom market, where you have a freedom not to be harassed, like that J.P. Morgan incident with Tesla. Then there could be a whole lot of, who knows, the discovered potentials we have. I mean, supposedly if we never had any wars, if there was never a Library of Alexandria burned thousands years ago, we would be like discovering different solar systems by now probably. But and some people say
so those were a lot of wisdom from the earlier cultures that were older cultures who were more evolved in some ways. Socially.
Yeah, look at the pyramids and things, and Greece had the first republic, and that we know of. I mean, who knows? But there's been a lot of things that aren't that aren't new under the sun. That's
right.
For sure. And again, we can still make history by learning from it and not repeating these vicious cycles. I mean, we are the ghost in the machine. We are spirits in a physical body, or at least that's what we're attaining to be. And so if we can break beyond these, these compulsive animalistic habits by learning from the past and not just going on habits, not just being about survival, but also pursuing our happiness.
Right.
I mean, another habit is voting out of fear, making decisions out of fear, not being fully informed. Here's a news flash. There are more choices than just the Republicans and the Democrats. They always say, well, you have to vote for lesser of two evils. But in 70% of the districts in the country, there are alternative candidates where I would argue you don't have to vote for the lesser of two evils. They don't even bother to mention the alternative choice. I mean, if there was two choices for everything in life, it would be a very abstract, two-dimensional life that we would live in. It would be very odd if everything that you had a choice for only had two choices. It'd be very much...
Well, that's right. That's what we've been telling people, that we're about giving people a choice. And so we were with the Constitution Party in suing the state to get our ballot lines. And we're very happy that people will be able to find the Green Party on the ballot and vote for our candidates, because they don't have to remember their names necessarily to vote for the green values. And that's what our candidates represent. At this point, we have not been bought, and we don't intend to get bought. We are a principled party standing up for working people.
Yeah, at least at this point in our history, that's what we need to do. I mean, who knows? Maybe someday in the future, the Libertarians and the Greens will become the new Republicans and Democrats. But
there's a lot of common ground there.
but there is. There's I mean, you both have 10 platforms each. There's about 5 of them which match almost exactly. And I mean, maybe in the future we'll just only have independents. But right now at 2012, we are at a time where there is a cartel. There is not just stifling of competition or repressing of competition in the free market. There also is a repressing of competition in the electoral process.
Okay.
And so this couldn't be a more opportunistic time. I mean, the numbers are growing for alternative choices out there.
I think the question is, if people do make the choice to go for, say, a green candidate, will the electoral system produce that? We feel like there's an awful lot of rigging in the system, and has been for a long time. I think those brothers from Florida investigated years ago and discovered that.
Oh, there's been many congressional hearings on election fraud with electronic voting,
and especially the electronic, yeah.
Yeah, and then look at Ron Paul, like how he was trying to do his campaign in Maine and stuff like that. I mean, no matter what side of the issues you stand on, I mean, I think it's in everyone's best interest to have fair elections. I think there's no libertarian running in your district, so I mean, if the party is strong there, they should endorse you, because it will end up helping them get on the ballot themselves in the future. And that's why we have to go in numbers. That's why we have to make it a national campaign, even if you're not in this district. The issues that you will be I guess, battling about and debating and discussing will be issues that will affect the entire 7th District, the entire state of Tennessee, the entire United States, as well as the entire world. And I think it's in everyone's best interest. This is going to affect them in some way or another. And if we did have people that had the backbone in Congress, that that's just the beginning. I mean, we'll still have to work a lot of things out, but this is step one right here.
That's right, step one. And Martin Luther King said that too. Voting is just step one.
Yeah, we have to get beyond this step.
There's a whole lot more to it. And, that's why the Green Party's into, doing a consensus process like the Occupy movement does. And we've been doing that for years, and that's why when I saw twinkling on that's what we call the fingers up wiggling. When I saw that on Occupy, I said, oh, hey, Green Party, but it was Occupy.
And Gary Johnson was in there too. There's a lot of consensus. There's a lot of room for fusion candidates.
Right.
It gets me pretty excited, to be quite honest, because we would like to imagine with our interviews here that to show people there are credible candidates that talking about issues you will not hear, important issues, fundamental issues. And I mean, just imagine 50+ independents, independents and third-party candidates, Greens and Libertarians,
right,
elected to the Congress, and just what a impact that will make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, occupy the House of Representatives. If you're going to occupy anything, occupy via legitimate elections the House of Representatives. And one for the Tea Party, if you want to bring them into the fold, is let's throw these incumbents out, just like they threw out the tea over Boston Harbor.
That'd be the most important thing, is to get rid of all of the incumbents, because at this point they're pretty firmly entrenched, and they don't really recognize the people.
Yeah, so if we have like hundreds of districts around the country, if there are some elections that are rigged, they're not all going to be rigged, and if we put, they're not all going to, so
it'll be clear, because they're not that competent.
Oh, well, obviously they don't think in the big picture of things. I mean, they don't see, they look at short-term gain versus long-term.
And you alluded some to evolution a little bit earlier, and I think that is also in play here, because, evolution moves when there's great crisis. I mean, that's when big change happens, is when there's big crisis. And so, we're having big crisis, not recognized by the current leaders, but those things need to be addressed. And so I hope that people will recognize that if they want to vote for change, they need to not vote for the money candidates.
Absolutely. And it's the money, I mean, is it's horrible, because it's going to these candidates from the candidates pretty much giving the money to the people that are giving it to them, from the bailouts and the special deals. So like Goldman Sachs and companies like that, as an example, would only be able to give the money to these candidates if the candidates give them special laws and privileges that give them the money in the first place. It's another vicious cycle. So it's money is just a way to transfer wealth. I mean, that's not
what it's supposed to be. In our system, it's much more than that.
So do you think,
we just a way of valuing things and a means of, like you say, transferring wealth. I mean, it's a way for them to get more of it, inflate our value, and for them to get a higher, it's the way for them to easily change percentages, because if they can always pump more of it without any oversights, then they get it first. So do you think our Federal Reserve should have more control under the Treasury, or maybe just become part of the Treasury Department itself? And I think it should be done away with.
Okay, great. And the IRS, you said, right?
And the IRS.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're just systems. They were set up by the industrialists for controlling, and of course it's a big pyramid scheme, basically, because all the money is issued as interest-bearing debt.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the interest isn't produced, in that system. so that interest has to be paid with more debt. And so you have this big snowball that eventually is going to be so big that it can't move anymore. And that's where we get to the metaphor of the caterpillar who eats until it can't move anymore. And then it starts hardening, and its immune system battling little green imaginal cells that begin to appear in it. And eventually those imaginal cells network in such a way as the immune system collapses of the critter, of the caterpillar, and it transforms into the butterfly. So the butterfly, as the hippies knew back in the 60s, and we could have made transition then, and it would have been a lot smoother and a lot easier. But people ignored it and let it go by.
Well, it's a lack of vision.
Now we are at a time where we need serious transition in order not to lose billions of people's lives. And so that's, all of these things that are good to do are the very things that will help keep us from that disaster. And so the butterfly is a symbol of a successful transition.
It's like a butterfly is like a renaissance, and that's very true. I mean, maybe this is a time. It can happen all of a sudden. We do have an emergency break in our system of governance where the House of Representatives every 2 years we can pull that emergency break, and it can be just a decision. We don't need their money anyways, really. All we need is people to tell 5 other people who will tell 5 other people, and it's just a decision that we've had enough abuse, we've had enough lying, we've had enough murder, and a complete disregard of the law, the due process, a respect of our civil rights and liberties, and it really is a lack of vision. I mean, a lack of vision means you can't see the big picture, and if you can't see the big picture, people are going to make decisions like this interest trap that we're stuck in, and people are going to be short-sighted to think that war is actually profitable when it's destruction instead of construction. And of course, there is a just war principle. I'm sure that you believe in, to defend yourself, of course. But I mean, that is common sense. Everyone should know that. I mean, people shouldn't have to argue about common sense. And but it's there. There is a chance. So, who are some people that you've been thinking about? That maybe in the last couple of months or weeks or days that you find interesting, sir, and why?
Well, one was that 15-year-old mayor from Al-Ar in Palestine, the Palestinian girl who has been mayor for the last 4 months in that city, or small city.
I didn't know about that. That's pretty interesting. Wow.
And it was on Al Jazeera. And I don't normally see that, but someone sent me that post from there. And she had just gotten back from Jakarta, being a little bit behind in her high school studies, but she was in Jakarta in conference with nations there encouraging empowerment of the youth, which is how she became mayor. The city fathers, this woman, this 15-year-old and her team of 11 other teenagers approached the city and said, we'd like to run the city for you. And in this youth empowerment program. And the city fathers said, okay, you can do everything but the financial part. We'll have to hold on to that. And but we'll be happy to help you out in any way we can, and yeah, sure, take over. And they did, and they've been doing amazing things there for the community, improving their situation, establishing a rock quarry, establishing a city park, establishing other programs and things that address the needs of the people. And that's what we need to be doing, is addressing the needs of the people, and we need a system that's able to do that. And one that's, given over to a few people with a lot of money. Our Congress is all millionaires pretty much, except for the few new people who will probably soon be millionaires if they stay incumbents. And we need to change that, because that doesn't attract the right kind of people to lead.
They have no shame whatsoever. I mean, they have the 10% approval rating, and they're going on as if they have a 90% approval rating. And so we covered the war, empire versus republic. We covered decentralizing. We covered the monetary system. We covered civil liberties. I mean, to me, folks, I mean, there's a lot of issues, but those are the big issues, and those are the issues where I think, the majority of the Americans agree on, and those are the issues where we need a voice to be heard. I mean, so to me, personally, that's the big picture. But is there any issues we didn't cover that you'd like to go over real quick?
Well, I think everybody can see, as I can, that the existing system doesn't know how to fix itself. I mean, or actually it is a fixed system, but they don't know how to repair it or address people's needs. They're completely unattached from that and don't know what else to do anyway. And so we need leaders that can come in there who have a plan, who know what needs to be done, who knows what things need to be addressed. We need an economic bill of rights. We need a green transition. We need real financial reform. We need a functioning democracy. We need, like you say, that pluralistic society where everybody has a voice. And the only way to do that is a broadly networked system of local governments. And that's what the Green Party proposes we move towards. And we need to unplug this empire and bring the troops home. And we need to turn that investment into fixing what needs to be fixed and become a good example for the world, and not the last empire struggling to stand on its feet while its prime resource runs out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how we're using our budget and our resources right now, it wouldn't be justifiable if we considered ourselves a republic. And if you look at a lot of countries like Mexico and some other places that wanted to learn, like I saw this documentary a long time ago, I think it was on PBS, but they wanted to know what was one of the successful parts of the U.S. government, and what they really learned was the reason why there's peace and civility, for the most part. Of course, there's plenty of injustices, plenty of people incarcerated, plenty of families that are split up, that we should have a drug war memorial that would have hundreds of thousands of people that we need to free. There's so many people that we can fight for, that we can free, that are relatives, and that could be any of us in the future. I mean, sometimes they raid the wrong houses and stuff. Keep that in mind. But now, it was what they found out after studying the United States was the reason why there's a lot of stability is because of the local governments, because they had so much balance of power. It's because, we have so much balance of power. It's because, there was all these processes, lots of different, local, county, city governments. That was one of the reasons. Now, of course, we could all hope for eventually just having, the golden rule, maybe, someday, we could...
Evolution, I think, is taking us towards that.
Well, it should reflect it, because right now people do have a 10% approval rating, and they didn't 2 years ago. It was very low. It was I think under 20% still. But there comes a point in time where, some people argue, like Ron Paul, we just need that philosophical debate and everything will fall into place, and that's true. But then, like Martin Luther King said, Jr., you do need to get some votes in there as well, and that has to reflect. So the fruit of Occupy Wall Street, the fruit of the Tea Party, has to be electing some, fresh blood per se, I guess, some brand new people, and that's not the end step either. I mean, because absolute power corrupts absolutely, and we have to keep on refreshing it, so to say. And
exactly. It's just like Jefferson and so many others have said, You need that refreshing.
But
pretty much every generation.
yeah, and we've had it a lot easier. I mean, all we have to do is really fight this battle of ideas. I mean, there are people that are going to jail and stuff that are in free speech zones, but it's not as bad as it was like 200 years ago, or even like the civil rights movement. I mean, we just need a vote. Now, it could get that bad. I mean, look at Nazi Germany and places like that where enough people didn't. Too many good people remained quiet for too long, and then all of a sudden, it happened. Like the momentum just tipped over to the favor of tyrannists. We can have it tip over just as quick to liberty. All we have to do is elect as many independent third-party candidates to Congress this year as possible.
That's right.
And so, can we look forward to any campaign spots or debates or anything like that in the near future with you, Howard?
I hope so. I haven't been invited to any debates, and I don't know of any forums scheduled in this race, and I'm kind of surprised at that.
Do you know the news stations or the newspapers that are supposed to hold the debates that people could contact?
I believe there's supposed to be one in Lawrence County that I will be invited to, so I'm very happy about that. And I expect there may be one in Giles County as well.
Great. Well, I mean, so from Tennessee or not, so especially if you're from Tennessee, I mean, even if, not all the districts there have alternative candidates, and
right.
So, well,
this one it's a rarity to have a good alternative candidate, I think, in the race. Now, of course, it's always been pretty easy to get on the ballot in Tennessee as an independent, but then you aren't identified by who you represent. And I think that's the value of parties, because it represents a certain block of thought. Now, there's a lot of diversity within the Green Party. There's going to be a lot of diversity within any group, as you can, I'm sure, have discovered. Sitting down in a meeting with 35 people, how much agreement can you get very fast, And
that's a good thing, and that's the strength.
That's right. That's the strength of democracy, because you come up with better ideas the more ideas you hear. And I believe that it's about perspective. In architecture, we have where we're trying to draw a drawing that looks realistic. Well, it takes more than one viewpoint. It takes at least 2, 3, or 4 viewpoints to make it look realistic and start looking, like something you could believe in.
Well, I mean, if you get in Congress, I mean, I think if we get a lot of people in Congress, one thing it's going to do, it's going to put the corruption on the run, or get defensive. And when they get defensive, they're going to start to expose themselves. Just like a good trial lawyer, they're going to slip. They're going to start to slip, and they're going to say things that they wish they never did in the public. And also, you're going to help try to expose things. People are going to get knowledge. You're going to get information about what's really going on, and then they'll probably have a strong reason to, in 2014, elect possibly even more people. I mean, and that's one thing I think that you would do is expose a lot of this corruption. And that way people can make more fully informed decisions if they know. How can they be expected to? I mean, they're voting for the lesser of two evils is because, I mean, that's all the information that's been presented to them. But right. There is more. That there's another candidate on the ballot. Just select them this year, elect them. And Howard, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you today. Very informative here, much more in depth. Than what we would what we do typically here, and so again, your website here is let's see, I just had it up here. Well, actually, if you could
HowardSwitzer.com.
HowardSwitzer.com. All right, so very easy. HowardSwitzer, right. .com. And well, Howard, I'll say goodbye to you after this interview real quick, and I hope you have a great afternoon, and so make this October worth it, and maybe it'll be a November to remember. So remember to vote November 6th.
Well, that's right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. you.